こんにちは。今日はひらがな、ダディルレロ、は、お、それからを勉強します。You can find Daddy Rurero in our classroom Kana-book page 13. And to watch a video, go to 10-Day Hiragana Challenge Day 8 or the URL presented on this page. The first character is da, and remember that this is romanized as RA, but it's actually a tap sound as in ladder. Let's take a look at the stroke order for this one. We have 2 strokes. The first one here can have a hook on it, as you see here, but then you see it in this type font over to the side. You notice that it doesn't have a hook on it. Sometimes I put a hook on it, sometimes I don't. The second stroke is a little bit tricky. Comes up and around like this. And the strategy for this is kind of fun. It looks like a rabbit, where the top part is the ear, and then the bottom part here is the rabbit's bum and part of the head. D is really easy. You just don't want to get it confused with oo. So up in left-hand corner, you see that there's a stroke here. Typically, it does have a hook here, and that hook is supposed to represent a dotted line that leads up to the next stroke and just comes down like this. Sometimes typewritten fonts will actually make that connection visible, where you'll see D written something like that. And so that can be a little bit confusing. If I write it really fast on the board, sometimes I'll write it with the connection here. D is 2 reeds sticking out of the water. So one reed and another reed that's a little bit longer. So this is what I was saying to a couple of you in class yesterday, that if you write E with the second stroke a little bit longer, it's difficult to tell if that stroke is E or if it's D. So be careful. If you're writing E, the second stroke should be shorter. If you're writing D, the second stroke should be obviously a lot longer. Do looks like a 3, I think. It's a little bit shorter here in the top stroke. So, actually, it's all one stroke, but it's 1. And then it swirls around like this. So it's a little bit like so in a way, but it goes the other direction towards the bottom here. So I think of this as 3 rubies, and that's the ruby right there. So the ruby is caught down in the bottom. The other strategy that's introduced here is, this is a crazy root. So to invoke the sound of RU, so it looks like this. Whichever one of those works for you. The next character is De, and De looks like Ne, only instead of going in and making a cat tail curl, it comes out. So I think you could use the cat strategy for this one as well, where you think of Ne as sort of a standard neko or cat, and then for De, you think of Ray, that's his name, as a cat where the tail kind of comes out and it's sort of more angular right here. You can see here that it's very angular, but here in this type font, it's quite circular. So I think either way is fine, as long as you have this part correct. The other strategy introduced here is Let's Dance, where the portion that comes out like this is supposed to represent the foot. Do looks exactly like do, only guess what? It is missing its rubies. No rubies here. So for me, I like this strategy. 3 rubies were stolen by a robber. Sort of not very close to do, although it is spelled robber as an R-O. See, no rubies right here. Okay, the other strategy then invokes the road visual. It's a plain road, meaning it doesn't have a lot of that twist at the very bottom. So here's the road, but there is no circular portion. じゃあ読みましょうか. Let's try to read these. Go ahead and pause the video, go through and read them, see if you can pronounce them, and then check your pronunciation. So the first one is 食べる to eat. 次は晴れ. Tsugi means next, so you'll hear me say this when we have a list of words. 次は曇り cloudy. 次は丸い round. それから means and then. 白い white. その次は霧。その後は春。次は心 heart。それから背広。This is actually an odd word for business suit. Most people nowadays just say suitsu. And who in Japanese is dare. That actually comes up in lesson 2, I believe. じゃあ書きましょうか. Stop the video, write it down on a piece of paper, and start the video when you're ready to check your work. The first one is 食べる. Ta, as in T and A. Be is a pile of hay, 10. And do is 3 rubies. Hare, ha, de. Rei is the cat that has his tail sticking out. Kumori is cuckoo bird's beak. Mo is I catch more fish with a hook that has several barbs on it. Ri is the reeds in the river. Maru is ma. I believe we came up with ma has 4 hands or 4 arms. Du is ruby no ru, 3 rubies. And I, sorry, for some reason it's not working very well. I is eel, no I. Shiroi, she has a flip in her hair. Do, the robber that stole the rubies. I, Hawaii no I, or eels. Kiri is the shape of the key, remember? And Ri is the shape of reeds. Haru. Ha, and then Ru for 3 rubies. Koro. Ko is the top and the bottom of the coin. And Ro is the robber who stole the rubies. Or there's no rubies. Seibiru or Seibiro is business suit. So sei is mom and the baby, say mommy. Bi is the laughing, the ha 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 sound look. So I'm not sure what that's for. Seibiro. Okay, and dare is ta, 10, and Rei the cat. So next is wa, o, and n, and you can find this in our classroom Kana book, page 13, or you can watch a video in Hiragana lesson 10, go to the URL presented on the page. First character is wa, looks a lot like ne and de. You'll see that the strokes are fairly similar, especially the first part, except this last part here, you're going to come around. So this is fairly close to ne. It doesn't have the curl on the tail. So I thought this one looks like ni for Neko, but this Neko's name is Walter. So we have Rei the cat, whose tail comes out like that. We have ne for Neko, the standard Neko. And that should be kind of more in like that. And then we have Walter, the cat he can be like perhaps a fat cat. Another strategy for this is a wasp flying backwards. I'm not so sure that one works very well, but anyway, whatever works. This is actually not something that you use to spell words with. Okay, it's romanized as W-O, but it's actually pronounced O. And what this is it is a direct object marker, or a direct object particle is what we've been calling them in class. So it marks a direct object. So if I wanted to say, for example, I eat pizza, I would say pizza o taberu. And that pizza is a direct object, and then the o would be written like this. So if you see a word in Japanese, let's say like onamae, this would never be written as this. It would always be this. Okay, so let's get to the how to write this. Up in the left-hand corner, you see that you have one stroke, you have two strokes. This sort of looks like chi a little bit, but instead of coming over like this, it comes down. And then you have what looks like maybe a toe. My strategy for this is that this is somebody's arms, and this is their head, and they're dipping their toe or their foot in the pond. And this is the pond portion right here. Okay, so, and then they say, oh, it's cold. Another strategy for this one is the cowboy said, whoa. Okay. This is the last one. This is un. And un is written very simply like this. Notice there's not much space here. So when you write it, you don't want to maybe write it like that so much, but bring that up a little bit more so it's a little bit more flesh in here. Un is the only consonant in Japanese to stand by itself. And you can see then that the strategy for this is actually quite nice because it looks like the letter N. Only if you start writing it like this, don't forget that this should be a lot longer here. So it's like a, what is this, a handwritten N? Only it has a long stem. Actually, it looks like an H. But in order to use that mnemonic, we have to think of the sound H. But we want to think of the sound for n. じゃあ読みましょうか. Go ahead and pause the video, see if you can read the words on the page, and restart it when you're ready to check your pronunciation. So the first one is watashi. So now we know how to write this. 次は wagashi. Wagashi is traditional Japanese confectionery. Next one is shinbun, newspaper. 次は maybe is tabun, tabun. And then we have the direct object particle o. Remember, even though it's romanized as wo, very few people pronounce it as wo. Almost always pronounced as o. Bay in Japanese is wan. So for example, Tokyo wan is Tokyo Bay. And Japanese language, now we know how to read and write it, Nihongo, Japanese language. じゃあ書きましょうか. Go ahead and pause again, write these out on a piece of paper, and when you're ready to check your work, restart the video. So the first one is watashi, which is wa, Walter the cat, who's kind of fat. Ta is in the T and A, and then she has a pretty hair, or she has a flip in her hair. Wagashi, again you have Walter. Ga is doing the can-can, 10-10. She has a flip in her hair, she has a ponytail. Shinbun, she has a flip. Here's that fu, Fujisan no fu, that looks like a nose, and you have a 10-10. Shinbun. Tabun, T and A, and you have the bu again, and then looks like a long-stemmed cursive N. O is, here are the arms, and there's the body and the leg, and it is dipping its foot in the pond. Wan, wa, Walter the wide cat. Oh, I guess wide works good here. Does it work? Yeah, wide. Okay. Un is the cursive N with the long stem. And Nihongo. Remember ni? This is the shape of a ni. Ho. Ho looks like an H and an O that's been underlined sideways. And go. Top and bottom of a coin with a 10-10.